Hey, good morning. Hey, howdy, hi. Happy Father's Day, everyone. Welcome to the Salt Lake Center for Spiritual Living. I'm so glad you showed up today. Welcome to those tuning in on our love stream this morning as well. Let's just get right to it. Let's sing and even wiggle in your seat if you want to. We're going to sing a chant together, so it'll be really easy to learn and a whole lot of fun. It's called Circle of Love. It's by an old-timer, Jerry Florence. So sing along.
In the circle of love, in the circle of peace, in the circle of love, in the circle of peace, I feel our unity, love, sweet security. I feel our unity, love, sweet security. In the circle of love, in the circle of peace, in the circle of love, in the circle of peace. I feel our unity, love, sweet security. I feel our unity, love, sweet security. In the circle
You got it now.
of love, in the circle of peace, in the circle of love, in the circle of peace. I feel our unity, love, sweet security. I feel our unity, love, sweet security. In the circle of love, in the circle of peace, in the circle of love, in the circle of peace. I feel our unity, love, sweet security. I feel our unity, love, sweet security. In the circle of love, in the circle of peace, in the circle of love, in the circle of peace, in the circle of love, in the circle of peace, in the circle of love, in the
Happy Father's Day to all the dads, the not yet dads, the stepdads, the moms who are dad, the adoptive dads, the granddads, the virtual dads, and the dads who are no longer here with us.
And the dog dads.
And the what?
The dog dads.
The dog dads. The fur baby dads. Oh, yes. All right. My name is Linda Brewer, and since I was born on Father's Day, this has always been a really special day for me, too. So I'm grateful for the privilege of welcoming all of you here in the room with me and all of you who are in our virtual love streaming community. We're just so grateful you can join us however that is. Those of you online, please share your name and where you are so you all can connect with each other the way we get to do in the room here. So thank you. Our practitioners serving in today's service are Teresa Martin sharing a reading and leading us in prayer, and Therrell Hinckley, who is holding high watch, knowing throughout this service that the very best and highest is unfolding as we share this sacred time together. Our center is a spiritual community that teaches a philosophy for daily living based on spiritual principles and practices that are universal among religions. We honor every pathway by which people seek to know and connect with the divine, and we work on our individual consciousness so that we can help make the world a better place. So, if you will, as we get ready to say our purpose statement together on this Father's Day, I'm grateful for the founding fathers of our center who had such a wonderful vision, one of whom is there in the back room, John Westbury. Thank you so much for your vision. So let's say our purpose statement. We are an open, welcoming community, celebrating our divinity, loving our humanity, and nurturing our journeys of spiritual discovery. Thank you. Our theme for this month is Back to Life, Back to Reality. And our speaker this morning is our very own Rob Eckman, whose mom, Ann, is with us in the room right here. And Rob is sharing a talk that he's calling The Fathers of New Thought. And making their debut today as our special music is our very own men's chorus under the direction of our amazing music director, Rick Charette, who has the greatest tennis shoe collection since I was in high school. You may notice that some of our younger members are with us today. That's because during the summer, Youth Church is happening downstairs on the second and fourth Sundays. The other days, they will be welcome here with us. So if you have kids, we'll have activities like coloring books that they can do right here and as they share the service with us. Now, Reverend Cindy is going to jump up here and join me, watch her jump, and share about our Food, Fun, and Friends fundraiser.
Thank you. So it's nearing an end, the bidding process. So you want to make sure that you put your bids in today, but next week, now that's the important week, because it's the last week you can put a bid in. So if you happen to have gotten outbid on something that you want to go to, you have to make sure that you come next week. Because this is the week, that's the week that really counts. So make sure that you're here next week. We look forward to closing the bidding process and having all these wonderful events to attend. So make sure that you are here. And we look forward to celebrating and communing with all of you at these different events. Thanks.
Thank you. So if you thought things were going to slow down for the summer, you haven't realized who Reverend Cindy is. In addition to lots of the Food, Fun, and Friends events, we are going to be blessed with the presence of the New Thought Queen of Song, Ricky Byers. Yeah. Ricky is doing a 2-day music symposium called Serving Boldly, and it is July 14th and 15th. If you know any musicians, especially those who serve spiritual communities or who recognize that their calling in life is to serve the world through their music, please let them know about this incredible event. We have lots of flyers here, so if you know somebody like that, see Reverend Cindy. Are there some on the hospitality table also? Okay, yeah. You might get hung up. Maybe you should put them out there. So anyway, but let's make sure that you let people know about this and share. And even if you're not a musician but you love music, you'll probably have a great time attending. So also, Ricky will be doing a concert for us on July 14th at 7 p.m. So you're going to want to get your tickets for that as soon as possible, because I'm pretty sure this room will be packed and you don't want to miss out on that opportunity. And if you get them before then, you get a discount. So go to the hospitality table and they will help take care of you about that. Okay, now that you've heard a little bit about us, more to come. It's one of those days. But if you're here for the very first time in person and you're brave and you're willing to let us know, would you raise your hand so we can welcome you and honor you? Anybody here? Right, Ann, right here. And over here. Okay, a friend here with Donna. Okay, super. So thank you for being here. If you already haven't, we have a welcome packet out at the hospitality table that includes a free issue of the Science of Mind magazine, and we hope you'll pick one of those up. And we affirm for you and for everyone here that you will experience a blessing here this morning, and I know you will. So, I'm not done yet. We also have summer school coming up with Reverend Cindy offering both a daytime or an evening book study based on that often mentioned by her book, Energy Codes by Dr. Sue Morter. These experiential sessions will run for 5 weeks beginning Thursday, July 6th at 6:30 or Wednesday, July 12th at noon. So you can get more information about that in the lobby and sign up for the class. I also want to remind us that tomorrow is our nation's newest national holiday, Juneteenth. Juneteenth is a day that honors the actual end of slavery that came not when Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, but much later for many enslaved people. Some African Americans first heard about emancipation months after the war had ended in 1865, excuse me. Although maybe, I don't know. So the Union troops under the command of Major General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas on June 19, 1865. It was the last place in the country to be notified. And he and his men went street to street proclaiming, "The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free." After that occurred, Juneteenth celebrations emerged as a tradition among formerly enslaved individuals and their families. The Black Lives Matter movement in 2020 reminded the nation of the Juneteenth significance, and in June of 2021, both houses of Congress passed a bill making June 19th a national holiday, and President Biden signed it into law. The widespread support for recognizing Juneteenth stems from the acknowledgement that it represents America as a nation deeply committed to principles of human freedom and equality. And thus ends your history lesson for today. Sorry. Bad, Linda. Okay, I want to remind you that 24/7 you can get information about all these announcements, sign up for classes, do a prayer request, lots and lots of stuff. Ask questions on our website, www.spirituallyfree.org. And I remind you, as I always do, that our center was founded on and it is grounded in prayer. Our professional prayer practitioners are trained in the art and science of affirmative prayer, and they are ready to know with and for you the highest good in any situation in your life, especially those places where you're having a hard time recognizing the presence of God is manifesting through that experience. If you would like a quick in-person prayer, our prayer practitioners, Teresa and Farrell, will be in the prayer room across the hall, and they will be available after the service to pray with you in person. We also have a prayer box on the hospitality table where you can submit a request, or you can do that online. And now I invite you to settle in as we prepare to share a time of prayer together. I invite you to allow Teresa's reading and the centering music to connect you to that place within. And then Teresa will lead us in prayer.
So on this day, happy Father's Day, and while I'm doing this reading, I'd like you to take a moment and think of somebody that, whether it's a biological father or somebody that you loved in your life, or a teacher or a mentor, someone that cared for you in your life, that would come under that aegis of, that was a father-like figure in my life, and that they cared for you in some way and helped shape you in your life. So they meant something to you. So while I'm reading this, think about those people. Okay, this is a tribute to those who guided us as a father whether biological or by love. And it's by an unknown author. As we look back over time, we find ourselves wondering, did we remember to thank you enough for all you have done for us? And for the times you were there by our sides to help and support us, to celebrate our successes, and to understand our problems and accept our defeats. Or for teaching us by your example the value of hard work, good judgment, courage, integrity. And we wonder if we ever thanked you for the sacrifices you made to let us have the very best. And for the simple things in life, like laughter, smiles, and the times we shared together. If we have forgotten to show our gratitude enough for these things and that you did for us, we're thanking you now. And we're hoping that you always knew how much you meant to us in our lives.
Here I am, a vessel to be used. Whatever spirit calls to me, I will be, I will be, I will be. Here I am. My heart is here to serve. Wherever love is leading me, I will be, I will be, I will be. Wherever love is leading me, I will be, I will be, I will be.
That love today leads us to remember our fathers, grandfathers, and the ancestral fathers, and all who acted as a father to us. So in deep gratitude for fathers present here or about to become fathers, and fathers of all kinds, I am deeply grateful for your input in my life, in all of the lives of those here present and those listening to us online. I am so grateful for all of the hours that you put in and for the love that you gave. So under these circumstances, I know that the divine is in each and every moment, every thought, every word, every aspiration and every action that has been taken. The divine was there, moving us, showing us, allowing us. And we were all connected in this divinity. This divinity is who we really are. We are divine beings in human form, moving in and as around us, everywhere is this divinity. We just have to awaken to it. And I give thanks this day, this wondrous, beautiful day, for all the men in my life, for all the men in the room and those listening to us, and for those who have taken the time to get this service together. What a wonderful way to celebrate Father's Day, with music and song and prayers, everything. So for all of that, I bless everything and everyone that takes part in this. So as I breathe into that love, that hope, that joy, that peace within, that gratitude, I bless all here. And as I do that, we say together, and so it is.
Thank you, Teresa. So I'm going to invite you to sing and whistle with us. You know, musicians, you may find have, several talents. Most of them, for most of them, whistling is not one of them. We would really appreciate your support. Well, even if it's a wrong note, just whistle away, okay? Always look on the bright side of life.
Some things in life are bad. They seem bad. It can really make you mad. Some people try to be a pest. Thank you. When you're chewing on life's gristle, don't grumble, give a whistle. And this will make things turn out for the best. Always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the bright side of life. If life seems jolly rotten, maybe something you've forgotten, and that's to laugh and smile and dance and sing. When you're feeling blue, start looking for a clue. Then purse your lips and whistle, that's the thing. And always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the bright side of life. Life can seem absurd, but it's not just for the birds. We can have some fun, I think we forgot. Here a little while, chin up and give a smile. Enjoy it, that's the only life you've got. Oh, always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the bright side of life.
So, it's a special day. How we did this thing is a miracle, and a lot of it has to do with this guy right here, Mr. Raj, the Wizard of Raj. But not to be outdone by the amazing group of men that came together to form this chorus. It's a great way to celebrate Father's Day. I'm so grateful to Mr. Alan Nauman, who I'm so sorry cannot be here. He's in California because his mom is ill. But this was his divine idea, and I'm just so sorry he can't join us today. This is a Negro spiritual we're going to sing for you. This is about the prophet Elijah. He looked up to Moses as, Moses was a stuttering man who had... Now that's Father's Day. That's awesome. So Moses was this stuttering man who was a prophet of God and got to go to the mountain and converse with the divine. And Elijah really respected that, and I'm sure he scratched his head. Here's this man who had kind of a wavering faith, at least in the beginning, but then had this volition and fierce desire to connect, and went to the mountain, and we know the rest of the story. But this song is called Elijah Rock. This is about Elijah wanting to stand on the rock where Moses stood to get the wisdom and love from our divine Heavenly Father. So I hope you enjoy this.
Elijah Rock, shout, shout, Elijah Rock coming up, Lord. Elijah Rock, shout, shout, Elijah Rock coming up, Lord. Elijah Rock, shout, shout, Elijah Rock coming up, Lord. Elijah Rock, shout, shout, Elijah Rock coming up, Lord. Elijah Rock, shout, shout, Elijah Rock coming up, Lord. Elijah Rock, shout, shout, Elijah Rock coming up, Lord. If I could, I surely would stand on the rock where Moses stood. If I could, I surely would stand on the rock where Moses stood. Elijah Rock, shout, shout, Elijah Rock coming up, Lord. Elijah Rock, shout, shout, Elijah Rock coming up, Lord. Elijah Rock, shout, shout, Elijah Rock, I'm gonna shout, shout, rock, Elijah Rock, I'll stand on the rock where Moses stood. Elijah Rock, shout, shout, Elijah Rock coming up, Lord. Elijah Rock, shout, shout, Elijah Rock coming up, Lord. If I could, I surely would stand on the rock where Moses stood. If I could, I surely would stand on the rock where Moses stood. Elijah, shout, shout, Elijah Rock coming up, oh. 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 Thank you. Now for the people. Come on.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you. The debut of our men's choir. Let's give them some more love. It's my honor and blessing to introduce our speaker today, our own very own Rob Eckman. Now, I'm going to give you the official bio, but then I'm going to speak from my heart about this beautiful soul. So Rob discovered Science of Mind in 1989. Yeah, it's been a while. He believes that practicing the principles of this philosophy change lives and promote deep personal happiness. Besides hobbies that include gardening, cooking, listening to Cole Porter albums, which we can bid on out there, reading books, Rob enjoys weeding the garden, doing the dishes. Oh, come to my house. And shoveling snow. See, now you know who to call, right? Rob serves as the manager at the King's English Bookshop in Salt Lake and is married to his beloved Steve. And together they are grandpas to 3 wonderful grandchildren. So, Rob, I haven't known you that long, but the minute I met you, I could feel the deep well of consciousness within you. The wisdom, the love, how you are an open book and greet everyone with honor and love. So it's my privilege to introduce our speaker today, Rob. Come on up here.
Good morning, everyone. Hello, and happy Father's Day to everyone here and online. It is my honor and privilege to be speaking to you. Over the years here at the center, I've been
allowed to speak several times. And this is my first time here in our new home, here in our tree house here in the clouds, as opposed to the cave from which we most recently came. And it's and I'm just thrilled to be here and am grateful. Before going into my talk, I want to report the passing of one of our members. Hugh Johnson passed away this week. And while I don't have many details, I know that his services to honor him occurred this week with his family. And so our hearts and love go out to Hugh's family and friends at this time. I also want, on the other side of that spectrum, I want to wish our dear friend Chad Hansen happy birthday. Today is his birthday. Yes, thanks. So happy Father's Day to us all. This is a day to celebrate Dad and Grandpa and uncles and gunkles. This is a day to celebrate the fathers in our lives from wherever, in whatever form they exist for us. Now, in this morning's Science of Mind magazine, as many of you know, Science of Mind magazine is the longest running religious magazine in the country, going for more than 100 years. And every month it contains a wonderful selection of daily guided meditation and affirmations. And this month's were written by Reverend Christine Hardwick, and I think that she sums up Father's Day very, very well by saying, whatever this day means to you, it has value and possibility. If it calls for love, laughter, and celebration, allow that to be. If it calls for tears or reflection, allow that to be. This is the richness of the human experience. Now, I also want to acknowledge that I believe one of the reasons that I was asked to speak today is because not only am I a man myself, and it is Father's Day, and I am a father and I am a grandfather, but I also consider myself to be a senior member of this community, even though I am merely 56 years old. I know that there are men older in age and wisdom here than myself, but I do know and I do value the fact that I'm an elder in this community, and I am proud of that. I would also like to recognize a couple of the founding fathers in this room, as Linda did, Jim and John Westbury, who were who were two founding members who signed the charter for the Salt Lake Church of Religious Science more than 50 years ago. And without them, we wouldn't be here today. So thank you to the Westbury brothers. We love you very much. Now, my own father died a few months ago, and while we were never best buddies, I did learn many important things from him. My father was incredibly honest. He spoke his mind. Boy, did he speak his mind. He was fair in his business transactions, and he told the truth. When I came out in the 80s, a very long time ago, when coming out was not what it is now, my father went the distance, and he went to his church and told them that there are members in the community that they need to reach out to. When in his own service at church, one of the presiding patriarchs said, "Who should we go out and who should we fellowship?" My father stood up and said, "Why don't we start with our gay children, those people who we have pushed away, and let's show them the love that they deserve." So I do admire and respect my father very much. But here today, I am going to offer up not really a sermon, and I don't know how much of a message there's going to be here, but it's going to be a little bit of a history lesson mixed with the message of community. You all are my spiritual community, and I love you all very much, and I feel that over time that my experience with you has grown, and I wish that same thing for everyone here. And I want us to grow and develop as communities. So I hope that this message comes through in what I have to say today. New Thought, as many of you know, is a mind-healing movement based on religious and metaphysical presuppositions that were originated in the United States in the 19th century. But we can look back much, much further to see some of the men who were fathers in history of this movement. Excuse me. We can go way, way back. We can look at way back at Plato and Aristotle. Plato argued that all things have a universal form. That is something we believe. Aristotle described that actuality is the fulfillment of the end of potentiality. He said, happiness is the meaning and the purpose in life, the whole aim and the end of human existence. Jesus himself can be considered a father of new thought. He was the master at praying affirmatively. Read the Sermon on the Mount and you'll see that Jesus always spoke affirmatively. His prayers were always positive statements of truth, and that is how we pray. He prayed, Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me. There is his acknowledging God and thanksgiving. I know that thou hearest me always, which is our form of unification. Lazarus, come forth, speaking with authority. Pick up thy bed and walk, or thy faith hath made thee whole. His prayers were statements of fact because he knew his oneness with God, and that in this connection, he represented God as he prayed and as he lived. Now we can leap forward to the 19th century, and there are fathers of the New Thought movement all around the world. There are Mr. Mesmer, Dr. Mesmer, who of course we now know the word mesmerize. There's Judge Thomas Troward, one of my great heroes of our movement, and one of the greatest influences on our founder, Ernest Holmes. Now, Ernest Holmes, the founder of science, of religious science, and the author of our textbook, The Science of Mind, two of the greatest influences on him were Ralph Waldo Emerson and Judge Thomas Troward. Between 1907 and 1914, Ernest Holmes read many New Thought books, and he was aware, he did believe that our thought affected the conditions that occur in our lives, but he didn't really have a model. He couldn't really describe it. He had already discovered the power of positive prayer and knew the importance of affirmations, but he was looking for a concise argument on exactly how thought became things. He wasn't at all convinced of the logic of the many books he'd read. He wanted closer, self-evident, and unquestionable reasoning. He wanted a theory and an idea that stood up to both scientific and logical reasoning, and these he found in Judge Thomas Troward. Now, Troward was an Englishman born in Punjab, India in 1847, and as a young man, he was recognized for his great knowledge of literature, and as a young man, became a divisional judge for the British Crown in the Punjab. He then spent the next 35 plus years studying all the Bibles of the world, including the Quran, Hindu scriptures, and the books of the Raja Yoga. Thomas Troward said, "The subjective mind is entirely under the control of the objective mind. With the utmost fidelity, it reproduces and works out to its final consequences whatever the objective mind impresses upon it." Now, the fathers of New Thought here in America include several important and well-known characters: Ralph Waldo Emerson, Walt Whitman, Emmett Fox, Phineas Quimby, Henry David Thoreau, Elbert Hubbard, and Alan Watts, among many others, a couple of which I'm going to discuss a little bit further now. Henry David Thoreau was an American naturalist, essayist, poet, and philosopher. He's best known for his book Walden, which is a reflection upon simple living in natural surroundings, and his essay entitled Civil Disobedience, which was an argument for disobedience to an unjust state. And he said, "It's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see." He said, "If one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors to live the life which he has imagined, he will meet with a success unexpected in common hours." And finally, he said, Every oak tree started out as a couple of nuts who stood their ground. Another great man at the time was the poet Walt Whitman. Whitman was considered America's poet in his day, and Emerson and Thoreau were his contemporaries. I also believe that it was the poetry of Walt Whitman who delivered many early New Thought concepts to the masses through his poetry. He wrote many poems, including one multifaceted piece called The Song of Myself, which he revised over and over and over again at his own expense and publication. This next piece is from The Song of Myself from 1892. I celebrate myself and sing myself, and what I assume you shall assume, for every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. Swiftly arose and spread around me the peace and knowledge that pass all the argument of the earth. And I know that the hand of God is the promise of my own. And I know that the spirit of man, and I know that the Spirit of God is the brother of my own, and that all the men ever born were also my brothers, and the women my sisters and lovers. And that a kelson of the creation is love. Limitless are leaves, stiff or drooping in the fields, and little ants in the little wells beneath them. The mossy scabs of the worn fence, heaped stones, elder, mullein, and pokeweed. But, arguably, the father of New Thought in America was Ralph Waldo Emerson, who we'll call Waldo. Waldo Emerson was an essayist, lecturer, philosopher, abolitionist, and poet, and is considered the father of the transcendentalist movement in America. He was seen as a champion of individualism and a critic of the countervailing pressures of society. He published dozens and dozens of essays and gave more than 1,500 public lectures across the United States. He developed certain ideas of individuality, freedom, and probably most popular, self-reliance. His views suggested that God does not have to reveal the truth, but that the truth can be intuitively experienced directly from nature. Now, in preparing for today's talk, I discovered a brand new book. It always makes me happy. This book is called The California Days of Ralph Waldo Emerson and written by Brian C. Wilson. The premise of this book is that in the spring of 1871, Mr. Emerson boarded a train from his home in Concord, Massachusetts, bound on a month-and-a-half-long tour of California, an interlude that became one of the highlights of his life. And on their journey across the American West, he and his companions would speak to a young John Muir in Yosemite and stop off in Salt Lake City for an impromptu conversation with Mormon President Brigham Young. Upon arriving in Salt Lake City by train, the group attended a show at the Salt Lake Theater. The next day, this small group set out to see the sights in 2 carriages. They went back to see the Salt Lake Theater. They visited Temple Square. They visited the Tabernacle, the Lion House, the Beehive House, a little place called the Deseret Museum, and the local hot springs 1 mile north of town on what we now know as Beck Street. Now, when they visited the Beehive House, where Brigham Young maintained a public room on the 2nd floor just for conversation, Brigham Young, like Emerson, was a national celebrity, and just as many 19th century tourists to Concord were in the habit of dropping in on Emerson unannounced. So, when the tourists in Salt Lake City arrived, they felt free to do likewise to Brigham Young. Now, this was a practice that had increased exponentially since the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad. Brigham Young had nearly 1,500 such impromptu meetings in the first 2 years alone. These meetings took time away from his busy schedule, but he also found them too valuable a means of correcting false ideas and removing prejudices. So, Mr. Emerson and his friends were introduced to the house and went upstairs. And when Brigham Young came in, he appeared and he did not know who Emerson was. Furthermore, Mr. Emerson was not the leader of the conversation, but preferred to sit back and listen. So while he had no idea of Mr. Emerson's fame, he probably thought he was just another tourist. But President Young's secretary knew just who he was, pointed to him and said, "Is this the justly celebrated Ralph Waldo Emerson?" And it was. Now, Mr. Emerson lived in Concord, Massachusetts, where he was most highly revered as a remarkable and beloved man by the community. He earned the moniker the Sage of Concord. He developed his own sense of community by inviting an incredible array of people, strangers, and friends alike into his house to discuss nearly anything. He lived in a fine home with his wife, whom he nicknamed Queenie, and soon was gathering all sorts of new friends to his home. He felt energized by the people who gathered in the home to discuss all sorts of topics, and these people included friends, local businessmen and bankers, and members of local social circles. Waldo also took action through service. He realized how important it was to get to know everyone around him. He joined the Concord Volunteer Fire Department. He joined the school board. He knew the value of community and service, and his involvement, along with his reputation, propelled him to great prominence in the town. Theodore Parker, a minister and another transcendentalist, noticed Emerson's ability to influence and inspire others. And he said, "The brilliant genius of Emerson rose in the winter nights. They hung over Boston, drawing the eyes of ingenious young people to look up at that great new star, a beauty and a mystery, while it gave perennial inspiration and it led them forward along new paths and toward new hopes." Now, a common feature in many homes in early American towns in the 18th and 19th century was a civic tradition, a safety tradition, of hanging 2 leather water buckets inside your home, numbered to correspond specifically to your house. When a fire broke out in town, it was your duty to grab your buckets and run to the aid of your neighbor, regardless of what you were doing and regardless of whether you liked them or not. Once the fire was extinguished, you were required to leave your buckets with the fire department. They would take a full account of who showed up and who didn't. And if you failed to help your neighbor, you'd be imposed with a tax and probably a little bit of shame and embarrassment. Emerson's example of community building and offering that hand of friendship really served him well. He gathered people around him, shared ideas and theologies, and this strengthened him and helped him to create the body of work that he left behind. Now, I have a surprise for you. I'm going to read you a story, partly because the junior church is here, although I think the junior church might have just left. It's okay, I'll read to the junior church's dad. As many of you know, I read books to children at the bookstore all the time, and I have wanted to read to this group for a long, long time, and finally found the right book to do it. And this is where the technology comes in, huh, Raj? All right, the book I'm going to share with you is A Home for Mr. Emerson. This is by Barbara Curley and Edwin Fotheringham. There we go. All right. A Home for Mr. Emerson. More than anything else, more than anywhere else, Ralph Waldo Emerson loved his home in Concord, Massachusetts. As a boy, he'd moved with his family again and again as they struggled to make ends meet. He wandered the narrow, noisy streets of Boston, dreaming of a home, comfortable and pleasant. He longed to live amid broad, open fields and deep, still woods, in a place he could make his own. In college, he still dreamed of fields and woods and home, but by his junior year in 1820, he also found new things to love. Reading stacks of books, discussing them with friends, and recording new thoughts in a journal. He named his journal The Wide World, and his thoughts took him everywhere. And when he finished school and set out on his own, he wondered, could he build a life around these things he loved? In 1834, he moved to the little town of Concord, determined to find out. He soon bought a farmhouse on the edge of a sunny meadow. He gave the house a fresh coat of white paint, and he welcomed his new bride, Miss Lydia Jackson, who brought along her rose bushes and hens. She sweetly called him Mr. Emerson, and he playfully called her Queenie, or Oh Queen. And they began their life together. Their house would not be fine until trees and flowers gave it a character of its own. And Mr. Emerson knew, but we shall crowd so many books and papers and, if possible, wise friends into it, that it shall have as much wit as it can carry. Mr. Emerson and Queenie had big plans for the yard, planting fruit trees and pumpkins and corn. They had big plans for upstairs, adding a cheerful guest wing for visitors. But most of all, they had big plans for the study. They set up Mr. Emerson's library of books, his table, and of course, his collection of journals, in which he wrote faithfully. Lately, he'd been pondering the importance of creating the life you imagined for yourself, saying, every spirit builds itself a house, and beyond its house, a world. Build, therefore, your own world. This idea and others he hoped to turn into books and lectures to support his family. Best of all, he could do this work in his peaceful study and in his nice rocking chair. Day by day, the Emersons' house was becoming a home, but something was missing. Friends. So Mr. Emerson sallied forth to meet the neighbors. William Monroe, who sold dry goods, Nehemiah Ball, who made boots, Phineas Allen from the Concord Academy, and John Keyes at the bank. Cynthia Thoreau and Mary Brooks of the Concord Female Charitable Society, as well as esteemed members of the social circle. Now, a sidebar, one name that they're missing from this is Louisa May Alcott, who was also from Concord and borrowed books from Emerson's library herself. Now, soon, he was building friendships while also serving his community. He was appointed Hog Reeve. Hog Reeve, rounding up wayward hogs that strayed from their pens. He chaired the Concord School Committee and joined the volunteer fire department, his leather buckets hanging loyally by the door. Mr. Emerson helped Queenie run the household and took care of their growing family, Ellen, then Edith, then Edward. And as they settled in, as he put it, the lukewarm, milky dog days of common village life. And every morning, Mr. Emerson ate pie made from his own apples for breakfast. He led his children through the orchard, sharing the names of the birds and the varieties of pears. Bobolink, bluebird, robin, and thrush. Flemish beauty, Andrews, Bartlett and Dix. Then he delved into his collection of books. In the afternoons, he walked in the woods, thinking about the books he had read and the nature that surrounded him. He wrote down his thoughts in his journals, each one a savings bank for his ideas. And after he filled his journals, Mr. Emerson filled his parlor with next-door neighbors and far-flung friends. They spoke about literature, theology, self-reliance, and freedom in evenings of grand discussion. Evenings of grand discussion gave Mr. Emerson even more ideas to put into books and share in his lectures. And he set out for Pittsburgh and Chicago, Troy, Toronto, Toledo, and off to Racine. He traveled by buggy, by steamboat, by train to dozens of cities for weeks at a time. And he talked. Too many people, he observed, accepted the opinions of others instead of thinking for themselves. Trust thyself, he urged his audience. Believe what is true for you in your private heart. Believe in the integrity of your own mind. The more Mr. Emerson gave talks and wrote books, the more people showed up to sit in his parlor. From nearby towns and from across the ocean they arrived. Noblemen in glittering carriages, poor students and famous writers, poets, philosophers, kooks and cranks, men without shoes or with beards to their waists. But no matter how far he traveled or how famous he grew, Mr. Emerson still loved living in Concord. He threw garden parties for the children, for the town's school children, with Dolly the horse munching nearby and Polly the parrot squawking on the stoop. He chatted with everyone, young and old, on his daily walks to the post office. The years passed. Edward moved away to study. Edith married and began a family of her own. Ellen decided that what she wanted to do most was to care for her own father and mother in their own home. And so it was until a morning of July 1872 when Mr. Emerson was 69 years old. Ellen was away visiting friends. Mr. Emerson and Queenie were alone. And just before dawn, he woke to the sound of crackling in the walls. He got up to investigate, and a strange yellow glow seeped from a split in the plaster. Smoke poured forth from the hatch to the attic, and when they opened a cupboard, flames flashed out. Mr. Emerson ran to his front gate to summon the neighbors. Fire! Whitcomb! Staples! Fire! He cried out. And he rushed back into the house to snatch up his papers as Queenie grabbed clothes from her closet. Before they knew it, the whole town had arrived. Arthur Gray ran through the choking smoke to gather pictures from the walls. George Haywood threw drawers of clothes out the bedroom window and then jumped for his life. One-armed Ephraim Bowl Jr. clambered up to the roof with a hose and ultimately put the fire out. Neighbors saved furniture, bedding, and most of Emerson's library. But he could only wander the yard, dazed and shaken. Such a terrible shock to an old householder to see his books and papers and stuffs and trinkets out on the grass in his dooryard. And his home. Oh, his home. The Staples took in the piano. Mrs. Weatherby, the silver, and the Whitcombs took in the dining room clock. Mrs. Gregory stacked up the pictures, happy to be returning the 1,001 favors she'd received from the Emersons over the years. Mr. Emerson marveled at the tender care of his neighbors, but his loss wore heavily. "It is too ridiculous that a fire should make an old scholar sick," he wrote to a friend. "But the exposures of that morning and the necessities of the following days have in every way demoralized me." Friends raised money to rebuild the house, but in his very broken days and hours, the task seemed overwhelming. Weeks after the fire, Mr. Emerson still felt himself an invalid. What Mr. Emerson needed to renew his spirit, his friends and neighbors agreed, was to go abroad. They urged him, as he put it, to run across the sea and rest and repair. And by the way, the neighbors paid for the house to be repaired and for the trip. Queenie preferred to remain at Edith's house, but she gave her blessing for the trip. So Mr. Emerson crossed the Atlantic with Ellen at his side. In England, Mr. Emerson was relieved to have nothing he must do. "A warm bed is the best medicine," he told Ellen, "and one gets such good sleep in this country, good, strong sleep." But he missed his gentle Queenie. In Italy, Mr. Emerson was charmed by gardens of peppers and palm trees and the Mediterranean washing the picturesque shore. But he hungered for letters from home. And in Egypt, Mr. Emerson rode donkeys to pyramids and temples. He cruised hundreds of miles up the Nile on a dahabeah powered by 10 oarsmen. And then the boat swung around to begin the long, slow journey back home. Day after day, the oarsmen paddled, and Mr. Emerson grew impatient, so impatient that he and Ellen abandoned the boat for a fast train to Cairo. He felt very gay, he told her that evening, because he had accomplished a good day's journey back toward Concord. "Soon, I trust," he wrote to Queenie, "we shall meet with renewed strength and unbroken faith in the heart as in our house." Then Mr. Emerson crossed the ocean again, his face surely turned toward home. And 12 days later, they were on the train to Concord, engine huffing, wheels clacking, whistle blaring the entire last mile, rolling into the station for one last surprise. What a sight, Ellen later wrote a friend. School children raced ahead of the procession that wound down the street. Wagons and carriages, even one filled with babies. And Mr. Emerson in a grand barouche. At the corner of the yard, the children reassembled. And as Mr. Emerson passed under the welcome arch, they began to sing, "Home, Sweet Home." Home, sweet home, and sweet Queenie waiting at the door. Well, I don't know where the images went, but Mr. Emerson fondly greeted his wife, and he stepped inside, amazed at all of his friends and neighbors had accomplished. The rooms were bright and clean. The furniture and the knickknacks in all their proper places, from the carpets on the walls from the carpets on the floors to the pictures on the walls. The study was brimming with his books and papers. Everything was as cozy and inviting, just as it had been before. Mr. Emerson went to the door and looked out at the townspeople assembled. When he had moved to Concord so many years ago, he'd never imagined that his home would extend so far beyond the four walls of his house to encompass the whole town. But the fire was hardly over, he discovered, before a host of friends were making our loss their own. Now they shared in the joy of his homecoming. He walked down to the front gate and said, "My friends, I know that this is not a tribute to an old man and his daughter returning to his house, but rather a tribute to us all, a family in Concord. And the crowd gave 3 hearty cheers. Mr. Emerson was home. The end. Thank you very much. So Emerson said, to believe your own thought is to believe what is true for you in your private heart is true for all men. This is genius. How can we each follow Emerson's examples? How can we grow community? Well, I can say hello to each of you and greet those of you visiting here for the first time. I can break out of my circle of friends and get to know new friends. I can partake in the Friends, Family, and Fun fundraiser that we're having with 1 week left to bid on. In my larger circle of life, I can lift my head and say hello to every person I meet. Have you all noticed how few people look up and say hello as you walk by? Let's turn that tide. Let's be the ones to say hello. And I can be in service. I can be in service in any number of ways. I can volunteer. I can do things here. I can do things in my own neighborhood. And this is truly the reasons that I believe that we are here together. Let's pray. As we as a community join here together in love and in fellowship, we acknowledge that there is one great universal spirit everywhere, in everything. Everything we see and in everything we do not see. In the particles and the spaces between them. It's all God. And because it is all God, that means that I am God. I am of God, and so is everyone within range of my voice. We are all spiritual beings having human experience. And for this reason, we can share, we can reach out our arms to one another and be one in community. On this day that we reflect upon and acknowledge and are grateful for the father figures in our lives, we can transform, we can continue to grow, and we can develop our community. I am so grateful for the community that I have, for this community, the Center for Spiritual Living Salt Lake, for the other communities in which I'm involved. And I know everyone here has other communities as well. But let's embrace them, and we reach out and we become one with them. And this makes us stronger. I am grateful for the blessings of my life. I am grateful for this community, and I'm grateful for this philosophy that we call the science of mind. For all of the blessings that it's brought into my life, I am so grateful. And I bless us as a group that we all share and that we all grow together, and that there is nothing that we cannot do. So I share this in thanks. And I easily let these words go to the universe, for I know that as I speak them, they are so. And please join me in saying, and so it is. Thank you.
I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I am. I am so blessed. I am so blessed.
Thank you, Rob. Let's give Rob some more love. Beautiful. So the ushers are coming forward as we're preparing our gifts. And this is when I want to just say thank you. Thank you to each and every one of you that has given in the past, that give regularly. that give consistently. We wouldn't be here without you. So as the ushers come and do the collection, you know, it comes to mind that what Rob was talking about, community, that's what we are. That's who we are. That we can't do this thing called community, Salt Lake Center for Spiritual Living, without each and every one of you sitting in these seats and giving what you can. Whether it's these dollars and checks or the energy and love of volunteering. This is what makes community. Having those buckets of water ready, right? So that we can help put out the fire when need be. Right now, those buckets of water are in those baskets that help us maintain. So Sue, come on forward so we can bless the offering. Thank you. So I ask that you outstretch your loving heart through your hands toward these baskets and repeat after me. I am so blessed.
I am so blessed.
We are so blessed.
We are so blessed.
We are so grateful for every dollar that I can give from the overflow of the blessings of my life. We are so blessed. And so it is.
All that I need comes to me. All that I need comes to me. Light of love and grace shines upon my face. All that I need comes to me. I've been set free, I'm released. I've been set free, I'm released. The burden of my past has gone away at last. I've been set free, I'm released. All that I need comes to me. All that I need comes to me. The light of love and grace shines upon my face. All that I need comes to me. All that I need comes to me.
So let's have the guys come out front and line up. Let's sing another tune for them. This is an inherently fatherly tune. Yeah. So you're going to hear a regular line and then with my own two hands. And I would love it if you would repeat that when we sing it. And you can even raise your hands, stick them out there with my own two hands.
Change the world with my own two hands. Make it a better place with my own two hands. Make it a kinder place with my own two hands. With my own up the earth with my own two hands. I can reach out to you with my own two hands, with my own two hands. Everybody. One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. I'll make a brighter place with my own two hands. I'll make a safer place with my own two hands. I'll help the human race with my own two hands, with my own two hands. I can change the world with my own two hands, make it a better place with my own two hands, make it a kinder place with my own two hands, with my own two hands. Here we go. One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. Oh, let's get together and feel alright. Oh, let's get together and feel alright.
When testosterone does good things. That was awesome, guys. And my brother, Rob Eckman. What a marvelous talk. It was the history and doing his good in the world. Reading to kids like us. Yeah. So don't forget to take advantage of the food, friends, and fun activities. Make your bids. If you haven't already, get your bid number and put it on the sheet. Let's spread this goodness of community around and have some fun along with it. Take advantage of the summer school. Really excited for Ricky Byers to be here, a concert and music symposium. If you anybody who comes to mind that would have an interest, sharing their gift with music as it's a calling, you know. You want to make good in the world through music. This is the symposium for you. It'll be wonderful and fun. And if you can't take advantage of that, at least show up for the concert Friday night with her. That's July 14th. Right here, an intimate setting, just Ricky and her piano. Can you imagine? Who gets to take advantage of that? We do! Let's stand, everybody. Let's sing our closing song.
Something's happening, love is taking hold and it won't let go of us now. Something here is calling us forward, upward motion with drops in one ocean roll on. Will you rise up with me today? Lift up your voice and boldly say, we are the one we've been waiting for. Live your dream of the highest calling, be the hope of a new day dawning. We're the ones who can make a difference, let's stand together. Share your gifts with the world that's waiting for a change that we're all creating. moment for our greatness. Let's stand together now. Every day's a chance you can do something amazing. Feel your passion blazing and shine. Paint with every vision, dance in new directions, explode through the rise in your mind. I will rise up with you today. Lift up my voice and boldly say, we are the ones we've been waiting for. Live the dream of your highest calling. Be the hope of a new day dawning. We're the ones who can make a difference. Let's stand together. Share your gifts with the world that's waiting for a change that we're all creating. It's a moment for our greatness. Let's stand together now. Dream, one voice, one heart, one world, one dream, one voice, one heart, one world, one dream, one voice, one heart, one world. Live the dream of your highest calling. Be the hope of a new day dawning. We're the ones who can make a difference. Let's stand together. Share your gifts with the world that's waiting for a chance that we're all creating. It's a moment for our greatness. Let's stand together. Live the dream with the highest calling. Be the hope of a new day dawning. We're the ones who can make a difference. Let's stand together. Share the gifts with the world that's waiting for a change that we're all creating. It's a moment for